Hello, good morning, Professor, and everybody. Today is December 7, and today I'm here using the OBS Studio to uh, record my final exam part 2. So, for this final exam, we have instruction provided as you can see on the screen. Uh, so, the first step is it asks us to log into the MySQL server uh, as the root user. So here I have opened my MySQL bench, and you can see my this final exam connection, and I ran this query and it says I am logged in as a root. So that was my first step. So second step, it asks us to create a new username. uh, so in order to do that, I'll be running a query, but I have saved all the query on my Word document. So basically, I'm just gonna select my query. Then I'm gonna go on my workbench. Then over here, I can hit Control V. So when I run this query, see, I can get it's a new creator. There is no any the row is no effect is zero rows effect. That means the query runs successfully, and I have created a new username Rimal underscore final user, and the password identified by his password is gonna be this one. So the next step is to create and populate QACS database. And he said if you don't have done, we already did this earlier for our final exam discussion board. But I can show you how I did it. Course were provided to us on the Canvas module by our professor, and I have copied those codes over here. So I'll just uh, no, the codes are. I have opened the codes over here. You see the unconnected. So okay, in order to create a database table, first we create a database named QACS final exam. Then we use QACS final exam. Then we create a table. So what you're gonna do, we're gonna select all these codes. I'm gonna copy them. I'm gonna go here, and you see I already have QACS final exam over here. So what I can do, I can remove, drop this schema from here, drop now. Okay, so there is no any schema left. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna paste all the codes I had earlier. So first I'm gonna create a database, name that one. I'm gonna hit run. Okay, no rows affected. Then we're gonna use the database we just created. So we're gonna run that. Then after that we'll be creating a tables under the database. So we're gonna use all these codes and hit run. Then you can see all the tables has been created over here. If you want to see now, if you refresh on the schema tab, you can see QACS final exam, and the tables, all the tables has been created over here. So the next step is to insert the data on those tables we just created. So I can copy from here up to here, then I can go back, and I can paste over here. So now, since I have from here, then I'm gonna run all these queries. I'm gonna hit run. Now you can see it's inserting all the data, and there's so All right. So when I refresh, and if I go on the customer and just hit this icon, you can open the customer table, and all the information are inserted, all the data are inserted into the table. All right. So I don't need this. Okay. Then we are number 4. Then we are asked to create another database named testDB, and create one table in that database named test table. And this table has 3 columns: first name, last name, GPA, as shown in the diagram. So I'm gonna create that. So I'm gonna use my Word document. So alright, so I'm gonna copy my codes. Then I'm gonna go back to my SQL. Alright, so I'm gonna paste them, but I'm gonna run one at a time. Okay, now you can see it says create database test DB. I'm gonna run that, and it's created successfully. And if you want to refresh, you can see test DB database schema over there. So now I'm gonna use test DB database. Now you see test DB is highlighted. Then I'm gonna create a test DBL. Then I'm gonna hit run. So far I am not getting any error messages. That means all the queries I have been running is like they're running fine with no error. Then I'm gonna insert this data into the table. So I'm gonna hit run, and from here I can hit enter. And if I refresh one more time, and if I go on the tables, you can see there's one table test TBL, and if I hit this icon, it's gonna show me the table, and you can see the contents inside the table. So now the next step is to make a copy of the test table, and named as a test TBL copy, and it asks us to use this step without using insert statement. So I have a SQL, I have a query over here. So I'll be using this query. I can hit B. You can see over here I create a query named create table test table copy as like I gonna select the columns, then from table this, so it's gonna make a copy of that. So I gonna hit refresh. Now you can see there are 2 tables under this database, test tbl and test tbl copy. Alright, so now the next step gonna be grant a select privilege to the user you created on tax2 on QACS database. So we create a QACS database on tax2. Okay, so earlier we create a user, so I'm gonna provide him the select privilege under the for the database name QACS. So in order to do that, I'm gonna go on my Word document, then I'm gonna run this query. Alright, so over here I say grant. If you want, I can do like this: grant select. So I can provide a privilege name grant select on QACS final exam to the username I created earlier. So I can hit run. There is no any error. That means I successfully provide a grant. And if you want to see uh, what grant I have provided, I can run the query too. So the and if you want, I can do like a show grants, and if I hit this, see, it's gonna say like a, hold on, this is for the root. This is for the root. Hmm. So grants to this maybe. Oh, I'll show you that later. Later, okay. So then it asks us to log in with the new user that we just created, right? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back on the home page. Then from here, we're gonna go on the database. Then we're gonna hit connect to database. Okay. Then instead of a root, we're gonna use the username we created over here. So it's gonna be Rimal underscore final underscore user, because you can see earlier when we created, see when we created Rimal final underscore user. So but I need this password, so let me copy this password. So now I can go back here. Then when I hit OK, it's gonna ask me for the password. So I can use the password I provided. So it's gonna hit OK. So now you can see MySQL over here at the very top right. So that's the new user I created earlier. So now if you want, I can show you like a show grants and run this query. And when I run this query, it's going to show me what are the privileges I have given to this user. And you can see the this user can use the database named, okay, let me make it bigger, named like a QACS, and we have provided him a select grant, only select grant. So then what it says, so let me go back. Okay, it says login. Okay, we did that, right? And then it says try to select data from any of the tables, and it asked me if I was able to retrieve the data, right? So let me go back and run the query. So right, so we can go back and now workbench. So I'm under the new user login right now. So I'm gonna run the query first. Used QACS final exam. I can hit refresh, and then I'm gonna run this command SQL query saying select everything from customer, and we want to see if I will be able to run this query or not. So when I run this query, there is no any like no error. That means I was successfully able to run this select query using the new user I created. So for, were you able to retrieve data? I can say yes, I'm able to retrieve the data. Why? Because I had provided select privilege to the new user I created. So now it says try to update or delete data from any of the tables, and then it's gonna ask how did it go? Does the what does that tell you, right? So we're gonna run another query. So let's try to delete from customer where first name is Robert. Okay, so You see first name is Robert there. So let's try to use this. Let's try to see if we will be able to delete data. So we can hit run again. Now we get the error at the bottom over here saying delete command denied to user this, because we have only provided a select privilege, not the delete privilege, right? Then the next step is, then it asks us to log in as root again and delete and add the delete and update privilege to the user. So we're gonna go back SQL. So now I was here on my new user. Now I'm gonna go back to my root. This is my root. Uh, so now I'm gonna provide a two more grants to the user I provided. So it asks us to provide the delete and update grant. Okay, so I'm gonna go back, yeah, and I'm gonna hit, I'm gonna say, hey, grant delete and update privilege on this database QCS panel to the user I created. So I'm gonna hit run and I'm gonna refresh this screen, and there is no error. SQL run successfully. And if I want to look at it, I can go back on my user, the new user one, and I can try to hit the run. So grants, earlier there was only select. Now you can see it says grant, select, update or delete for this user. Okay. Then it asks us, okay, where are we? Okay, it says update. Okay, login. Then it asks us to log in as a new user and try to update or delete. So I'm here on my new user, right? So now it asks me to use the update delete one more time to see if I will be able to do it. And let's try to run this. Control V. Okay, and let's try to run this. Okay, I try to it's the same thing. I try to run this query again, and it still says delete command denied to user. Hold on. Uh, Let me see. So branch. Okay, that's update delete. Okay, then we're gonna use this. Okay, and this is delete. Okay. Okay. Now it didn't give us an error saying delete command demand. You see, you have a different error now. That means this user is, we have provided a privilege delete, but I'm getting a SQL message saying you are using safe update mode and you try to update. So now it asks us to try to select data from test table. Were you able to? So now let's try to select test table. So in order to use the text table, we have to run the query name use test database. Let's see, my user will be able. So I'm gonna hit use test database and hit run. See, I got the error on the very first query. and it says access denied. Since we have not provided any privilege to this user to use the test database, this user cannot access to the database at all. Okay, so is to try to select data, but since when we cannot access, there is no point of selecting the data, but still I can try using running this code. Okay, select, but I'm 100% sure that I'm gonna get the error saying this user is denied, it cannot, it has no privilege. See, when I run this, I say it says like a text QC financial table does not exist. This table. So first we need to, in order to solve this problem, in order to my this user to gain access to the like to select any table, we need to give him the privilege, any privilege like a select or whatever. So now the next step is to provide a grant privilege on the last name column only. Last name column only in the test table. So provide this user. We're gonna provide this user the grant privilege, grant update privilege, and to use the database name test table. So grant, I can hit update only on the last name. Okay, only the last name on the table name test table to the user I created. So I can hit run. Oh, sorry. You know what? I need to run this course. Sorry. I need to run this course on the as a root. So I'll come back here. I'll provide the grant over here. Then I can hit run, and my it ran successfully with no error. That means I have provided a update privilege. So if I want to see if I have provided the update privilege, I can go over here and on the new user connection and say show grants. Now you can see I have provided privilege for two database. First is like a final QHS final select update delete, and for the second is a grant update is for the test database. So now you can go here. Okay, now on step I, it says test the privilege you granted instructions for by first trying to update the first name column to any of the data. Is there any luck? And if not, then it asks us to try to update the last name, and it asks me how did it go. So let's run some query. So I'm gonna come back. So we'll be using a test database, and there's no error. That means I will be able to use database name test db. So let's use this query first. Update test table set first name. It says update the first name, so I'll be try to set the first name as a PUNE where GPA is 2. So let's try to run this one, and it says I get an error saying select command denied to user. So this user cannot update any first name. So let's try to do update test table, select last name Puna, where GPA is 2. So let's try to run this, and this time I also got the same error saying select command denied. So select command denied to this. So I cannot run this query because we have only provided the update privilege to this user for the database name test dv. We haven't provided we haven't provided privilege name select. That's why you cannot select the table for me. Okay, so in order to solve this issue, first we can provide select privilege along with the update privilege to the new user I created, and then we can make some changes. All right. So now I'm on part number J. So it says revoke the privilege you provided on taxi. So earlier we provided on Stevia's update privilege. So now it actually revoke the privilege and try to update last name one more time and see what's gonna happen. So okay, so let me revoke the privilege that I provided. So in order to do that, I have to use a revoke query. So we're gonna do this query. I'm gonna go back. Okay, so oh no, you know what? I'm on my okay. I'm on the new user connection right now. So let me go to the root connection to do that. Okay, let me run this query over here on the root connection. So I'm gonna revoke update privilege on test table from the new user I created. So I'm gonna run this command. No error. That means I have successfully revoked that one privilege. So if you want to see, I can go back here and show grants. Now there is no any grant like a privilege for this user to access to the test DB. There is only for QACS. So if I go further down, it asks me to run this update last name one more time. So let's try it, and of course I'm gonna get a denied error because we had only provided update privilege earlier, and we were still getting error because we hadn't provided select privilege. Now we have taken that update privilege from this user, so now this user doesn't have any privilege to access to test database at all. So this user cannot make any update on the test table test database. Okay, so uh, so now on step number K, it asks us to write a query to list all database you have on MySQL. So in order to uh, if I use show database query, right? So database query. Alright, so I can go on my root connection, and if I hit show database query and run this query, see, it's gonna show me all the list of database I have created so far. So college, information schema, Karimal college, MySQL, performance schema, QACS, you can see there, test DB also is there. So it's gonna show all the database I have created. Okay, so database. So and the step L asks me to write a query to list all tables in the QACS database. So QACS database, right? So I'm gonna run the code command show tables. So and go back here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say let me use QACS database for okay. So let me use then I can run show tables and after this. Alright. So first I'm gonna run use KCS database, right? Then I'm gonna use show tables command query. Now it's gonna show me all the tables that are included in the database name QSS like customer, employee, item, sales item, vendor, and that's all, right? Now I'm gonna go back and instruction. So step M, it says write a query to list all column names in customer table. Customer table, all column names. So in order to do that, we're gonna use a simple query, select query. So we're gonna use a select query. We're gonna go here. See, we're gonna hit select all the columns from customer, and we're just gonna hit run this command. Now it's gonna give you all the list, all the columns list like customer ID, last name, first name, address, city, state, all the columns over there. Now we are step in. Write a query to rename the customer table. So we have to, it asks us to rename the customer table to costbl. Okay, so we have to rename the table. So in order to rename the table, we're gonna use a query called rename. So we're gonna use this query. Then we're gonna go here. So we're gonna say rename table name customer to CUST That's what they want us to rename to, and we're gonna hit run, right? So I ran the command, there is no error, right? So if you want, if it has rename, I can try to hit run the commands query says show tables one more time and see if customer changed to cost TBL, and you can see over here on the very first row customer has been changed to cost TBL, right? So that we successfully renamed the table. So then when step O, it says write a query to drop test TB copy. Remember earlier we make a table named test TB copy, so it asks us to drop the table. Then it's gonna ask us to drop the whole database name test DB. Okay, so for this we're gonna use the drop command drop. So we're gonna use the drop command. So first we're gonna drop the table name table TV copy. So we're gonna hit drop table. So run this command. Okay, you see I get error saying unknown table QACS because earlier we were using the QACS. Now since we are trying to use the test DB database, we have to say use uh, test DB use test DB database first. Okay, let's run this query first. Alright, now we're gonna drop the table. Then we're gonna hit run. Test DB copy unknown table. Ah, hold on. Why is it unknown? Oh, let me see. So, okay, test. Ah, earlier I had test TBL. Hold on, what I did. Yeah. I'm trying to see where I created that table. You see, over here already it asks us to create another table, create a table in test TBL, another one. See, it asks us to make a copy of test TBL and named it as test TBL copy, test TBL. right? Test.tbl. Now it asks us to drop test.tb copy. So we don't have test.tb, we have test.tbl. As you can see, test.tbl copy over here. Test.tbl copy. We don't have any table named test.tb. Okay. So if you try to run drop table test.tb, there is no any table named test.tb, so it's gonna say unknown table. But if I run, if I add el over here like test.tbl, make it test.tbl and run this command now, see it successfully ran my query. There's no error. That means like it successfully dropped the table. So if I refresh over here and if I go on the tables on the test.db, there is only one table left now. There were two earlier, now there is only one. Then the second step is actually to drop the whole database named test.db. Okay, so we're gonna use drop database, then it's gonna permanently drop the database from our computer. So we can hit run, no error, that means database is gone. If I hit to refresh over here on the schema, the test.db is no more on our schema. Okay, then it say finally login as root and drop the user that you created in tax2. Then okay, remember uh, earlier we created a new user. Now it asks us to drop that user. Okay, so let's go here. We have to drop the user that I created. So we're gonna use the drop user query. So over here I'm gonna hit drop user and the username I created earlier. Okay, so I'm gonna hit run. It ran successfully without any error. That means I have successfully dropped the username Rimal underscore final user. So now they want us to see if I can I will be access to login with the new user I had created earlier. So let's save the password. Okay, I need that. Okay, let's go back here. Let's go back on the database and say connect to database, and instead of root, let's type the same I had dropped earlier. Primal underscore final underscore user, right? Then we're gonna hit OK. Then it's gonna ask for the password. Then the password was this. And let's say OK. See, now it says cannot connect to database server because we just use a drop command to remove the user from our system. Okay, so just is close. Then were you able to log in? No, I wasn't able to log in because we just dropped that user from our system. So I think that will be all from my this video presentation. So uh, thank you so much, and I hope you all have a good day. So let me go back on my screen over here and just